Hello, welcome back to the Honest Art Podcast. I'm so excited because today I'm answering all of your questions, the questions that you're sending in, and I love getting these. It feels like a conversation. If you would like for me to answer your questions, I'm going to invite you to join my Patreon community. So through Patreon, we have several different options, but one of them is you get to get on a call with me once a month and ask questions, but you can also submit questions for the podcast. So if you're interested in that amazing community of artists, you can go to patreon.com/Honest Art Podcast. But now let's get into your questions. Okay, first question is from Rebecca, and it's a short and sweet question that is Art Storefront a bad idea? So for those of you who are not aware, there is a company, an online company called Art Storefronts, and what their main thing is that they say they support artists in marketing themselves, basically, and they talk about how they will create your website for you, and they will help you with your marketing and social media. So I no shade specifically to Art Storefronts. But before I answer this question, I also want to say I have never personally used Art Storefronts, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I have worked with about a dozen artists who have. And here's my only beef with really not just Art Storefronts, but any company that says, for basically a bunch of money, we will handle everything for you. You don't have to worry about any of it. Well, that sounds so good as an artist, especially because it's like there's so many things that we have to keep up with, right? Like, do I need a website? Do I not need a website? Should I sell prints? Should I not sell prints? Should I do social media? I hate social media. Like, they're pushing on all of those pain points that we have as artists. But here's the beef. Here's my issue with it is, yes, they will do those things, but you will not stand out as an artist. You will look just like every single other artist that they represent. And you can tell this because, like, if the people that I mentor, I look through their social media. I usually follow them on social media. And you can tell the ones that are represented by this company because every one of their posts looks exactly the same. So it's like on social media, there's a post of a painting, and then it just says the name of it and the size. That's it. So there's nothing that engages the collector to appreciate the art or to relate to the art at all. And you guys know I talk all the time about how collectors buy the artist as well as the art, right? We have to develop this relationship with our collectors and with people that follow us, right? And so when you have a company like this saying, I'm going to do it all for you, yeah, they do. But you don't stand out at all. There is nothing unique that they are putting out there about you as an artist. So should you do, something like Art Storefront? That's totally up to you. I think where people get really excited is they offer a website. The thing that I would say is, I want my website and I want all access to that website, like from here moving on. And I'm not sure if because they create the website, if they maintain the website, should you choose to move forward. That's something that I would worry about and consider and, get that question answered. What I did is when I first started, I got on Squarespace, and it is so inexpensive. It might even be free. I don't know. But Squarespace is a way for you to have a website and to have a unique website, and you can stand out, and it's inexpensive, and it's really, really easy to do. I had my nephew set it up, and then I just updated it all the time. But Even if you didn't want to do a website, you guys know I talk all the time about Artwork Archive. That's an inventory management system, and you can load all your paintings there, and then you can have a public-facing profile so it looks like a website. And let me tell you, I've worked with artists that have only used Artwork Archive as their website, and they sold a ton of art. And I think that it may be around $120 a year if you do artworkarchive.com/JK. You get 20% off, but that's not why I'm telling you this. Like, Artwork Archive is just amazing. Anyway, that's a long way to say, if you're going to use a company like Art Storefronts, then make sure that you have your unique voice, that you are not looking and sounding like every other artist out there, because so far that is what I have seen. All right. The second question is coming from Rena. Thanks for writing in, Rena. And she says, your podcasts are terrific. I just listened to your conversation with Yasmin, and I am curious why the newsletter service MailerLite was not mentioned. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the question, so Yasmin is a badass member of my team. She handles like all of the back-end digital marketing stuff. So all of the emails that go out, she's in charge of all that tech stuff, that the whole tech part of it. And she has worked with email marketing providers for years. So I had her on the show in one of the episodes back in May. And what she talked about is different email marketing providers. So as artists, we need to have an email list. I know we are thinking, I just use social media, but social media is rented ground. We do not own that, right? It's amazing, but if social media went down, we would be screwed in terms of being able to present our work to people who love our art, right? An email list does that. So Yasmin was listing different email marketing providers that artists can use, because you can't send those emails directly from your email. You have to have a email marketing service. That's how, every email you get from a company, there's an unsubscribe button. There's all of these regulatory things. That's why you need an email marketing service. So the specific question was that this artist, Rena, said that the newsletter service MailerLite was not mentioned. So the reason that there's so many of them, by the way, like we talked about MailChimp, we talked about ActiveCampaign. That's who I use. But I started with MailChimp. The reason why we didn't mention MailerLite was at the time Yasmin had her experience with MailerLite. This is like 3 or 4 years ago. She didn't feel like that there was quite the capability to grow with it, right? And so, but now she has looked at it. I reached out to her, and she's done some research, and it looks like they've expanded that capability to grow. So that's great. So here's the thing that we want to consider as artists. Like, let's say we are just starting with our email list, and we've got 20 people on that list. But then that list is going to grow, and it's going to grow, incrementally, usually 25, then it's going to be 30, then it's going to be 40. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to need a platform that's going to be able to handle more people than oftentimes the free version of these email marketing services do. So look at it from that perspective. Don't just look at it like where I am right now, but look at your email marketing provider as where you're going to be, or what your goals are, where you want to go. Because yes, you can change your email marketing service, you can, but it takes some work, it takes some time to reset up all that stuff again. And like, who's got time for that? All right, let's move on. Christina. So Christina asks, she said, I was listening to your podcast about selling art, and you mentioned that artists should not give our art away. She said, I had ripped the corners of one of my watercolor pieces and felt like it was destroyed. So I thought giving it away would be great, because who would buy something that isn't clean and perfect? I also haven't sold any art yet, so I thought maybe just to get my stuff out there, would this be an okay circumstance? Well, first of all, Christina, I just want to tell you, I am not the boss of you. And you could do whatever the fuck you want with your art, and nobody should be able to say anything. But for context, one of the reasons that I said that artists should not just give away their art is because oftentimes what happens is we don't have the confidence in our art, and people will literally say to us, I've seen this happen so many times, oh my gosh, how much is that piece? I'd like to buy it. Well, if you haven't sold any art yet, and you don't have, or you don't really have the confidence to sell it, usually what we'll do, because of our own lack of self-confidence, we'll say, oh, you can just have it. Oh, this little thing, you just take that. Something like that. That's when I'm saying, let's stand a little bit more firmly in what we're doing and like the work that we're putting out there. And our time is valuable. Our skills are valuable. What we're creating is valuable. So that's from where I was talking about, let's just not give that art away, or let's not just give a 50% discount to people who haven't even asked for a discount. That's really more of what I'm talking about. But to your specific question about that something was torn on the paper and it wasn't perfect anymore, and that's why you're going to give it away, I can fully appreciate that. However, in that situation, there are two other options to consider. Number one is you could offer that at a discount, right? You could take a certain percentage off for that. The other thing, well, okay, I'm going to say, I said two options. I'm talking about a third option. The second thing you could do is if it was just on the corner, you could trim the paper and put it into a frame, or, put it into, what do you call that? When it's got a border, you've got the frame, and do you know what I'm talking? A mat, yeah, like the mat. Thank God Amy is here. So you can put that in that, and so then it's not going to show, right? So you just change your presentation, and then the other thing you do is you just embrace it, right? You just like, this is the way it is. I have a painting that I love. It's actually one that I created for myself, but it's of me and my daughters, and it hangs in my house. And that painting fell one time. Then this time it wasn't the ghosts, for those of you who are keeping up with my social media. It fell, and it hit a corner of a table, and it ripped that painting. And I was so sad about it. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the most of this. So I got some needle and thread, and I just sewed it up, and I just kind of think it tracks. Like, it totally is on brand because we are imperfect, and I just love the look of the stitching on it. So your other option is to go ahead and embrace it. But just getting back to it, just whatever you can do to gain a little bit of confidence. If you haven't heard last week's podcast on that could be helpful. So go back to, I think it's episode 87. Take a listen to that one because I think that will help. All right, next one. Molly asked a pricing question. So Molly says, she loves the podcast. Thank you, Molly. She said, so two questions. Number one, what do you think of linear inch pricing? And number two, I sell rarely, and I think that I maybe need to lower my prices, but you say you can't go back. Okay, so the first question around linear pricing. So a lot of you may know that I most often suggest people do their pricing by square inch pricing. So basically you would take, like if it's a 30 inch by 40 inch painting, you multiply those together, and that's 1,200 inches, right? So there's 1,200 square inches. So 30 by 40, that would be your square inches. And then you multiply that times your price per square inch, right? So what Molly is saying is she prices on the linear inch rather than the square inch. And then she multiplies that times 20. So here's the thing. Both work. They definitely both work. The key is to having a formula to where you are not pricing based on your feelings or your emotions, because we all know, well, usually for me, the last painting that I did is usually my favorite painting, and so I want to kind of raise my prices a little bit, but we can't do that. That's not when we raise our prices, but I'm going to talk about raising prices, lowering prices. So either way you want to do it, but as long as you have a formula, that is the most important part. a formula. We do not price based on emotion. Okay. Now, the second question that you have is you haven't been selling very much and you think maybe you need to lower your prices. But then I usually say you can't go back. So this is true. So what I always say is you probably should start a little lower, because once you raise your prices, once you start selling your art at those prices, this is the key. Once you start selling your art at those higher prices, you can't go back. And the reason why you don't want to go back is that you don't want to discount. Basically, you're devaluing your collectors, the art that your collectors have already collected, right? So you are lowering the value of that art if all of a sudden you lower the price of all of your paintings. But here's the thing, is that you're kind of in a great place, Molly. When you said you sell rarely, this is the time to really look at your pricing and adjust it. So you're like, it's all good. If you've just sold a bit, just a little bit, and you're like, you know what, I think that one of the reasons I'm not selling is my price, then lower them. You can totally lower them. The key is to lower them across the board. Like if you have a website and your social media and maybe a third-party online gallery or something like that, just make sure that you lower them and they're consistent across the board. So I hope that helps. The Honest Art Podcast is now on Patreon. And if you're like me, I didn't know what that was, but this is the good news. It's a private community platform, so you can get even more from the Honest Art Podcast. So exciting. So as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and for a little bit more, just a few more bucks, you get things like behind the scenes shenanigans that I'm up to. You get connection within the community of Patreon. We get to do Q&As. It's just a little bit more intimate, and you get discounts. You get early access to workshops, all kind of things. So consider joining my Patreon community, and you can do that at the link in the show notes. All right, next question is from Anne, and it is about fixatives. And I love this because I just did an episode in October on fixatives and mediums and varnishes and all that. So you can check out that episode if you want more information on fixatives. But the question is, what fixative do you use or recommend for acrylic, oil stick, charcoal, and pencil? And the reason you said that this is all in one painting, I feel you. I do this usually on one, all in one painting for myself as well. So you said that you got a gloss from a company, but you're scared that the charcoal and pencil might smear. It will. It will, unless you use a fixative first. Okay, so here's what I do. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this, but if not, I'll just talk about it. But I have these two fixatives that I use. One is my kind of everyday in the studio fixative, and that is by Krylon. This is a workable fixative, and if I have charcoal or if I have pencil and I spray it, it'll seal it. Like it'll keep it from running. It's also great for, when I've got my soft pastels, spray it for soft pastels as well. So this is the fixative that I use. It's Krylon. You can also get it, I think, like at hardware stores, I'm pretty sure. But if not, just art supply stores. So this is the one I keep in my studio. But as you guys know, I travel and I have, workshops, and like if I'm going to Italy or really I'm traveling anywhere, I don't want to have an aerosol fixative. And so I have this other fixative. It's by Degas fixative. I think it also says SpectraFix Natural Artist Materials. So again, you can use it on soft pastels, oil pastels, chalk, pencil, graphite, like all of the things. So these are the two that I really like to use. So I hope that's helpful. And then, by the way, once you use these fixatives, then you can go ahead and use a varnish, a medium or a varnish to varnish the painting, and then you won't have any issues with that charcoal or pencil smudging. How about that? All right. A couple more questions here. Trisha asks, she says, I want to know, how do you stop or tell the scammer the scammer from a real customer who wants to buy your art. I am so sick of hearing from scammers. Thank you in advance. So, there are a few things. I still get, the emails from scammers too. How you want to respond to them is totally up to you and how you're feeling on that day. So for me, if I'm feeling good and fine on a particular day and I have a scammer, reach out to me, and I can tell because the words are misspelled or they're not written in quote proper English, things like that. And somebody, I know it's a scammer, and I'm just like, I've just had it, then I will probably write, please, fuck all the way off. And I'll screenshot it. I will post it on my stories. I will just have had it, and I don't want to play nice today. And then other days, I'm okay with it. I'm like, you know what? Everybody's got to make a living. Not really. I don't ever think that. They can always fuck off. But sometimes I just won't respond to them, right? And then here's what happened. This has just happened last week, which is so funny. So I didn't respond. And so they wrote back and said something like, you haven't responded to this request. And I just responded, no response is a response. So it just depends on how you want to handle it. But I digress. What you were asking is, how do you stop the scammer? Okay, so how do you stop it? I don't know. What some people have said is if you put no NFTs in your bio for social, that will stop them. I haven't really seen that, very effective, because it's like if they're not asking about NFTs, they're just wanting to buy your art. That's not going to have any bearing on it whatsoever. But how do you tell if it's a scammer? So the thing how you can always tell if it's a scammer is, number one, their English is very, very poor. Number two, they don't really have a unique script. They're like, hi, I saw my wife looking at your art and our anniversary is coming up. And I'd love to get something for you. And then they'll say, they'll always want to know your most expensive painting. So they'll try to reel you in with any sort of thing they can, because they know, an artist is always going to want to sell. Well, kind of anybody is going to want to sell their most expensive thing, right? So they'll ask for your most expensive piece. They'll say, it's for an anniversary, it's for a birthday, it's something like that. And they'll want you to start communicating with images and things like that of your most expensive work, basically. And then the other thing that they will do is, let's say you weren't quite sure if it was a scam or not, and so you went in. They'll always want to have some odd way of paying. They'll want to pay you via PayPal, but they're going to want your email. It's just, if it seems shady, it's totally shady. Another thing that they'll do is they'll say, for shipping, I'm going to send you shipping separate, or if you'll just do, they'll just want you to do some odd, weird thing. It's a scam. Don't fall for any of that. All right. Next question is from Amanda, and Amanda asks, I know you're currently in the middle of your Studio Elite Mastermind program, but I was wondering if you have a prospective start date for the next one. Thanks for asking, Amanda. Yes. So we are starting again in the middle to end of January. Super excited because, as you know, it's a brand new year. And a lot of people are like, you know what? This is my year. I've been thinking it's my year for a really long time, but I don't have the accountability to myself or community. And so this is a great way. If you're thinking that, 2025 is your year to go pro on your dreams and really fulfill the things that you've been hoping for, check out the link in the show notes for the Studio Elite Mastermind. It is by application only. So, definitely fill out an application. And what stops a lot of people from filling out the application actually is they don't think their art is good enough, or they think they're not quite ready. And I just want to tell you, everybody thinks they're not quite ready. Every single person thinks they're not quite ready, and everyone worries that their art isn't good enough. And so I look at a lot of different variables when it comes to the Studio Elite application, and the art is just one of them. I also like to keep it an asshole-free zone, so I look at everything, right? I'm really discerning whether this is somebody that I want to work with every single week, and do one-on-ones with, and put in a community where people need to feel safe. I look at that because it's a 6-month program. And so who you are is just as important as your art. So so applications are open right now, and we start the middle to the end of January. All right. And then the final question is from Donna, and the question is about shipping. And I know a lot of people have questions about shipping. So this one is, do you package the art yourself, or does a company do it for you? To that, I will say it depends. If it is a smaller painting, like one of the 12 by 12s that I do, then yes, I will package that myself and then drop it off at, usually FedEx, drop it off at a shipper. However, if it is one of my larger pieces, and when I say larger, I'm really talking kind of like anything like 30 by 30, 40 by 40, like any of those kind of standard sizes that I have, then I will do it like a hybrid of packing myself and taking it to a shipper. Because when you package it all yourself, that's a lot of supplies, number one, that you have to have on hand, and you're not quite sure when you're going to sell it or need to ship it. Like, I can have a bunch of shipping supplies and sell most of my art in the city of Austin, then I'll hand deliver them. Then I'm just got all this money sunk into shipping supplies. So what I do is a hybrid. I will wrap the painting in glassine myself. Then I will put it in plastic to shield it from any moisture or anything like that. And then I will add the corners, and I will take that to the shipper, and they will put it in a box for me. So it's like I'm not paying the additional price for all of the other labor, and yet I am. I basically am kind of splitting it, but I also have a professional shipper, so I know it's packaged correctly. So there you have it. I have loved listening and getting your questions. If you have, like I said, if you have any questions for me, please join my Patreon community. It's a ton of fun. And within Patreon, we also do a lot of behind the scene things that are not available anywhere else. All right. Okay, take good care of yourselves. Oh, by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to this channel, because it is so important for us to get the word out and for more people to get the information. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, please download this and give us a 5-star rating. Write us a review. That really helps us out a lot. All right, take good care of yourselves and each other. Peace out. I have got great news for you. If you are like me, you didn't go to art school, or maybe you did go to art school, but you really need a refresher. I've created the Color Course for Rebels 102, and it just came out November 1st. So this is the content that I use to create fine art, right? So if your art is it's good, but I want it to be fine art, the Color Course for Rebels 102 is for you. So in it, what I do is I teach my trademark color mixing method and teach you how you can build your own palette without having to be restricted. I also talk about composition, the dance of the opposites. Composition is more than just knowing where the focal point is. We talk about tools. I demonstrate how to use all of these tools and what effects they have on the painting. We also talk about mediums and glazes and fixatives. And then I build a whole ass painting, start to finish, from fun to fuglies to finished. And then I help you find your own style. So this is the Color Course for Rebels 102. I used to offer this for $697. It is now available for $147. Check it out at the link in the show notes.